There comes a point in every seeker's life when traditional answers no longer satisfy. You've read the books, practiced the techniques, and perhaps even glimpsed something deeper, an unshakable feeling that there's more. More to who you are, more to this reality, more to what's truly possible for a human being. You start to sense that your transformation isn't just about healing trauma or improving your mindset. It's something far more profound, a complete reorientation of your consciousness. This is where Joe Dispenza's work becomes not just relevant, but revolutionary. For decades, Joe Dispenza has stood at the intersection of science and spirituality, delivering insights that bridge brain chemistry, quantum physics, and personal evolution. He's not merely a motivational speaker, he's a thought pioneer, showing people how to unlock dormant capacities of the human mind and nervous system to create a radically different life experience. His message is clear. You are not at the mercy of your past, your genes, or your circumstances. You are the architect of your own internal universe. But here's the kicker: transformation isn't random. It doesn't occur by accident. It's not a product of wishful thinking or half-hearted intentions. True transformation follows a path, and that path has structure, momentum, and layers. Joe Dispenza calls this the 12 Stages of Ascension, a progression of inner thresholds designed to take you from survival mode to full-spectrum coherence with the intelligence of the universe. Now, ascension isn't about levitating or escaping physical reality. It's not religious, nor is it confined to a particular doctrine. It's about elevating your state of being so that your inner world is no longer governed by fear, resistance, or limitation. It's the unfolding of consciousness itself, stage by stage, rewiring your brain, reconditioning your body, and recalibrating your electromagnetic field. This video is your guide to that process. You'll gain a powerful framework to understand where you are in your personal evolution and what lies ahead. Whether you're just waking up to the power of your mind or you've been on a spiritual path for years, these 12 stages will give context, clarity, and direction. You'll begin to see your setbacks as signals, your emotions as fuel, and your intentions as quantum directives to a field that's always listening. So, if you felt the pull towards something higher, this isn't random. You're tuning in for a reason. These 12 stages are not just concepts. They're energetic thresholds that many have crossed, and many more are awakening to. You're not alone. You're part of something far greater than you've been told. Let's start at the beginning, not with the end goal of enlightenment, but with the first flicker of realization that begins it all. To fully grasp the significance of the 12 stages of ascension, it's important to first understand the foundation Joe Dispenza has laid through decades of research, exploration, and teaching. At the core of his philosophy is one simple truth: your thoughts create your reality. But this isn't mere pop psychology. According to Dispenza, every thought you think sends an electrical signal in the brain. Every emotion you feel sends a chemical cascade through the body. Repeated long enough, these patterns become your personality. Your personality, in turn, becomes your personal reality. When people try to change their lives without changing their state of being, they find themselves stuck. That's because most are living unconsciously, operating from conditioned programs built from past experiences. The external world acts as the trigger, the nervous system reacts, and the person, believing they are thinking freely, is really just reliving familiar emotional memories in a loop. Dispenza's work breaks this cycle. Through neuroplasticity and epigenetics, he shows that the brain and body are malleable plastic, responding not just to experiences but to focused thought, elevated emotion, and intention. In short, you can rewire yourself. But change is rarely linear. It's not a switch that gets flipped in a single moment of insight. It's an evolution, a multi-layered process that requires energetic commitment, emotional integrity, and a profound willingness to let go of the known. That's why the 12 stages of ascension matter. This framework maps the journey from unconscious conditioning to conscious creation. Each stage corresponds to a unique psychological, emotional, and energetic shift. It's not just spiritual metaphor, Its measurable change in brainwave patterns, heart coherence, and energetic signature. Before we start naming these stages individually, let's clarify what ascension really means in this context. Ascension, as used by Dispenza and many modern consciousness teachers, refers to an internal expansion of awareness. It's not about leaving the body, but rather embodying higher dimensions of intelligence within the body. When someone begins to operate from elevated states, gratitude, joy, compassion, presence, they're no longer being run by their survival brain. They begin to harmonize with the quantum field, influencing reality through coherence rather than force. In other words, ascension isn't about escaping the human experience. It's about upgrading it. Now, this roadmap of 12 stages offers something incredibly valuable: orientation. Most people go through spiritual or emotional awakening without knowing what's happening. They feel lost, anxious, euphoric, confused, sometimes all at once. Without a clear path, they may misinterpret breakdowns as failures or temporary discomfort as permanent blocks. The 12 stages clarify what's happening and why. They provide structure to a nonlinear experience. For example, if you're noticing an increased sensitivity to your thoughts and emotions, you might be entering stage 1, where awareness begins to awaken. If you're feeling the pull to release old patterns but also facing resistance, you could be moving through the surrender process of stage 3. If you're radiating gratitude for no reason, you may be stabilizing in stage 5, where your frequency is shifting and beginning to magnetize new timelines. This isn't just inspiring, it's empowering. Knowing what phase you're in lets you work with the process, not against it. What makes Joe Dispenza's framework stand out is that it's not based on philosophy alone. His methods have been applied in thousands of workshops and studied in collaboration with neuroscientists and researchers. Participants have shown measurable shifts in brain coherence, heart rhythms, and even spontaneous physical healing. These aren't miracles. They are the byproducts of ascending to higher levels of consciousness and rewiring the body accordingly. So why do these stages matter right now more than ever? Because we're living in a time of massive energetic upheaval. Systems are collapsing. Old paradigms are breaking down. People are waking up en masse to the realization that the way things have been is no longer sustainable. This awakening can feel chaotic, but it's a necessary disruption. It's the cracking of the cocoon. The 12 stages of ascension give a roadmap to navigate this metamorphosis. Whether you're at the start of your journey or midway through, each stage builds on the previous one. Skipping ahead doesn't work. You can't live in mastery if you haven't surrendered. You can't trust your intuition if you haven't cultivated mindfulness. Every level is encoded with lessons that rewire your perception, balance your nervous system, and activate latent capabilities. Think of it as upgrading your operating system, not just mentally but energetically. Old belief systems begin to dissolve. Emotional wounds lose their charge. Your identity no longer clings to trauma or limitation. You begin to experience synchronicity, flow, and a deeper intimacy with life itself. This is not motivational hype. It's physics. It's biology. It's the quantum field responding to coherent energy. And this is why understanding the stages is so vital. You're not just a passive observer in your journey. You're the conductor, the signal generator, and the receiver. The more you understand where you are on this map, the more gracefully you can traverse the terrain. You stop fighting your emotions. You stop resisting change. You begin to use each phase as fuel. In the next part of this video, we'll explore the first 4 stages, the essential foundations that begin the process of ascension. These are not abstract concepts. They are initiations, psychological, emotional, and energetic thresholds that mark the departure from unconscious existence into awakened living. By the time we finish that segment, you'll know how to recognize the signs of activation, how to interpret the discomfort of early-stage transformation, and how to begin aligning your thoughts, emotions, and electromagnetic field with your highest potential. This journey is yours, but you don't have to walk it blind. You're about to discover that each stage is not just a step upward, but a return to your original, unconditioned self. That version of you that already exists in the quantum field, whole, radiant, and fully in sync with the intelligence that governs all creation. Let's move forward. Let's map the beginning. The process of inner transformation doesn't begin with grand gestures or external shifts. It begins in silence, in that quiet, often disorienting moment when something inside stirs, challenging the status quo. This moment doesn't always arrive with clarity, but it marks a threshold. A subtle realization that life can't continue on autopilot. That realization is the spark that sets the first stage of ascension into motion. Joe Dispenza outlines the first 4 stages as foundational. They form the bedrock upon which every other stage rests. These aren't steps to rush through, they're initiations. They recalibrate the way you relate to your mind, your emotions, your identity, and the world around you. Let's walk through each of these 4 inner thresholds and examine what they unlock within your consciousness. Stage 1, awareness. Every change begins with awareness. But not just any awareness, the kind that pierces through distraction, habit, and unconscious programming. At this point, something shifts your perception. You begin to notice your thoughts, not just think them. You observe your emotional reactions and start questioning their origin. Instead of moving through life in a reactive haze, a space begins to form between stimulus and response. This shift can be jarring. You might catch yourself thinking thoughts that no longer align with your aspirations. You begin to recognize patterns that have repeated for years, behaviors, emotional loops, mental scripts, and realize they've been running your life without conscious permission. Awareness, in Dispenza's framework, isn't about judgment. It's about illumination. The brain begins to reroute itself the moment attention is brought to unconscious processes. You can't change what you refuse to see. But once you shine a light on the mechanism, how you react when criticized, why you sabotage relationships, how fear governs your decisions, you've already taken a step outside of it. This stage is subtle but powerful. It requires honesty. It also requires presence. Many people stay stuck in stage 1 for years, gaining insight without application. The key is to allow awareness to shift your orientation. Once you see the mechanism clearly, it becomes impossible to unsee it. That discomfort is not a problem. It's fuel for evolution. Stage 2, acceptance. With awareness comes a choice. Resist or accept. The second stage invites you to embrace the present moment, not because it's perfect, but because it's the only place transformation can happen. That means accepting yourself, not the polished version you present to the world, but the raw, vulnerable, sometimes fractured self that emerges when you stop performing. Acceptance doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean endorsing dysfunction. It means releasing the internal war with what is. Many people try to heal while simultaneously rejecting themselves. They try to grow while judging the parts of them that still hurt. This inner division blocks energy. It locks you into cycles of self-sabotage, where progress is made and undone in the same breath. Dispenza emphasizes that to change your biology, you must first align with the present moment. That includes the version of yourself that is still healing, still uncertain, still learning. Only from that place of radical self-honesty can you start rewiring the nervous system. This stage softens the edges of the ego. It begins to loosen your grip on perfectionism and control. You begin to see that your past doesn't define you, that every pattern you carry was, at one point, a survival strategy. You made choices with the awareness you had at the time. Now, with deeper insight, you can choose differently, not from shame but from clarity. Acceptance reclaims your energy from the past. It roots you in the now, says, "This is where I am, and from here I choose to evolve." This is the point where internal resistance begins to dissolve and a new possibility emerges. But to step into that possibility, something else must happen. Stage 3, surrender. This is often the most misunderstood stage, and the most liberating. Surrender doesn't mean defeat. It means letting go of the illusion of control. It means recognizing that your rational mind, as powerful as it is, can't engineer transformation through willpower alone. At this stage, you begin to trust the intelligence that governs all life. You stop trying to micromanage your healing. You stop demanding that change happen on your terms and timetable. You begin allowing. This shift isn't always graceful. Letting go can feel like falling. But that free fall is where the old self begins to dissolve. The grip of identity starts to loosen. You're no longer clinging to the version of you that was shaped by fear, trauma, and conditioning. In Dispenza's teachings, surrender is the gateway to the quantum field. It's what allows your energetic signal to shift. When you're constantly analyzing, predicting, or forcing outcomes, your brain remains in high beta, stuck in stress. But when you surrender, brainwaves begin to slow. The body enters coherence. Your frequency changes. You become receptive. This stage teaches you to trust the process, not in theory but energetically. You may not know how everything will unfold, but you start to feel safe within uncertainty. That safety isn't rooted in external circumstances. It comes from alignment with a deeper intelligence. True surrender isn't passive. It's a bold decision to release control while remaining fully present. It's saying, I don't have to know what's next to move forward. I just have to be available to something greater. This is where your energy starts to move differently. Your attention shifts from the external world to the internal signal you're broadcasting. And with that shift, you're ready for the next pivotal stage. Stage 4, intention. Once you've quieted the noise of control and resistance, a new clarity emerges. From this clarity, intention is born. This stage is about coherence, aligning thought, emotion, and action toward a chosen outcome. It's not about wishful thinking. It's about setting a clear, energetic directive that's backed by elevated emotion and unwavering focus. Dispenza teaches that intention, when fused with elevated emotion, becomes a powerful signal that communicates with the quantum field. Thought alone is not enough. You must feel the future before it arrives. That means generating the emotion of your desired reality now, before the evidence appears. This is where many people trip up. They think intention means visualizing or scripting outcomes. But true intention isn't mental. It's electromagnetic. It requires the body to believe what the mind is imagining. That belief isn't intellectual. It's felt. The heart and brain must enter coherence. Your energy must become stable, focused, and elevated. From that state, intention becomes magnetic. You're no longer reacting to your environment. You're creating from the inside out. At this stage, discipline becomes sacred. You begin to show up consistently, not out of obligation, but from alignment. Meditation, breathwork, and visualization become tools to tune your frequency. You begin to choose your thoughts deliberately. You guard your emotional state not out of fear, but because you understand it's the key to manifestation. Intention gives your energy a direction. It tells the quantum field, this is who I am becoming. It doesn't plead, hope, or beg. Commands not from ego but from alignment. This is the beginning of a new identity, one not shaped by the past, but by potential. You begin to feel like the version of yourself you are calling in. And from that state, reality begins to shift, integrating the foundations. Together, these 4 stages form the scaffolding of transformation. They're not steps to check off, but states of consciousness to embody. Each one activates different parts of the brain, shifts your chemistry, and opens new neural pathways. Let's recap what's been activated so far. Awareness breaks the trance of unconscious living. Acceptance dissolves internal resistance and creates emotional stability. A surrender opens the channel to higher intelligence and energetic coherence. Intention focuses your energy and aligns your internal state with a chosen future. If you're experiencing confusion, discomfort, or emotional intensity during these phases, know that it's all part of the recalibration. You're not losing yourself, you're shedding layers that no longer belong. Each release is making space for the real you to emerge. As you integrate these foundations, you'll notice the shift. Your reactions will soften. Your emotional set point will rise. Synchronicities will increase. People, experiences, and opportunities will begin to mirror the new signal you're emitting. This is the turning point. You've moved from being a passive consumer of life to an active creator. In the next part, you'll enter the middle stages of the journey, where elevated emotions become your baseline, old pain is transmuted, and the heart begins to lead. Gratitude, forgiveness, compassion, self-love. These are not abstract ideas. They are energetic signatures that unlock higher timelines. You've laid the foundation. Now the real shift begins. Once the foundational stages have been embodied, awareness, acceptance, surrender, and intention, the internal architecture begins to shift. You're no longer operating solely from the old self. A new frequency is emerging. This is the space where your transformation deepens, not through theory, but through direct experience. The next set of stages, stages 5 through 8, are the alchemical middle. This is where the density begins to dissolve, where the body starts to heal, where the past loses its grip, where elevated emotions become more than occasional states. They become your new baseline. These 4 stages initiate deep cellular changes. Your electromagnetic field strengthens. Your intuition sharpens. You start to experience coherence between thought, feeling, and behavior. But you're not just becoming more positive. You're becoming energetically sovereign. Let's explore these pivotal stages that mark the turning point in the ascension journey. Stage 5, gratitude. Gratitude is more than an attitude. It's a frequency that rewires your entire nervous system. In Dispenza's work, gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership. When you feel genuinely grateful, your heart opens. Your brain and heart enter coherence. You move from survival into creation. Gratitude signals to the body and to the field that the desired future has already arrived. This isn't about forcing yourself to feel grateful. It's about training your body to live in that emotion, even before the external result appears. This is the essence of becoming the cause, not the effect. The body doesn't know the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. If you rehearse gratitude often enough, real, somatic gratitude, your brain begins to fire in new ways. You create neural patterns that reflect the future you're stepping into, not the past you're leaving behind. This is why gratitude is so powerful. It bypasses mental resistance. It dissolves doubt. It builds trust in the invisible. When you feel grateful now for something that hasn't yet materialized, you collapse the timeline between desire and manifestation. You become an energetic match for that outcome, not through striving but through receptivity. Daily immersion in gratitude becomes a form of energetic tuning. It's not something you do. It becomes who you are. Your very presence begins to emit the signal of already having. And that signal reshapes your entire reality. Stage 6, forgiveness. Where gratitude opens the heart, forgiveness clears the field. You cannot carry the weight of the past into a new timeline. The frequency is incompatible. Forgiveness is the stage where you begin to consciously release emotional charges that have bound you to old identities, wounds, and narratives. This is not about condoning harm or forgetting pain. It's about alchemizing it. Forgiveness, in Dispenza's framework, is an energetic reset. It releases trapped energy from the emotional body and restores coherence to the system. The most potent forgiveness isn't directed outward. It's inward. It's the moment you release yourself from self-blame, shame, and regret. It's when you stop identifying with your past mistakes and begin to see them as initiations. Many people attempt to ascend while dragging emotional residue with them. But evolution requires lightness. You cannot expand into higher states while gripping tightly to resentment. Those emotional charges anchor you to the past. Forgiveness is the process of cutting those cords, not through willpower, but through the decision to free yourself. This stage often brings tears, not because you are breaking, but because something heavy is finally being released. Your nervous system begins to exhale. Your body softens. The energetic bandwidth that was once consumed by resentment becomes available for healing, creation, and joy. Forgiveness isn't an event. It's a frequency you learn to hold. As you embody it, you'll notice something profound. Your story begins to shift. You're no longer the victim of your life. You become the conscious architect of it. Stage 7. Compassion. Once forgiveness clears the static, a new quality arises. Compassion. Compassion is the frequency of unity. It's the recognition that all beings are doing the best they can from their level of awareness. It doesn't mean excusing harmful behavior. It means perceiving through a lens of higher understanding. At this stage, judgment begins to dissolve, not only toward others, but toward yourself. You realize that the pain you carried wasn't unique. Everyone is navigating some form of suffering, and most people are trapped in patterns they don't even realize they're repeating. Compassion is the beginning of energetic inclusion. Your heart no longer closes when you see dysfunction. You don't take it personally. You simply recognize it for what it is: unconsciousness. This shift is crucial. When you judge others, you reinforce separation. When you embody compassion, you activate unity. You send a signal to the field that you are aligned with higher intelligence, not the lower ego. And that alignment brings miracles. Dispenza teaches that the heart has its own electromagnetic field, far more powerful than the brain. When the heart opens through compassion, its signal strengthens and extends. This field influences others. It reorganizes energy. It attracts coherence. Compassion doesn't make you soft. It makes you stable. Your emotions become more fluid. You stop reacting and start responding. Instead of shrinking in the presence of pain, you expand. This stage marks a turning point in your relationships. People begin to feel safe around you, not because you fix them, but because your energy doesn't demand they change. This neutrality is healing in itself. And as you extend compassion outward, you deepen it inward. You no longer berate yourself for not being farther along. You begin to see your growth as sacred, no matter how imperfect it seems. Stage 8. Self-love. Compassion flows outward. Self-love brings it home. At this stage, you begin to anchor your energy into sovereignty. You no longer seek validation from the outside. You begin to recognize your own worth, not because of achievement, but because of essence. Self-love isn't a feeling. It's a state of being. It's the decision to honor yourself, to treat your thoughts, emotions, and body as sacred, to choose practices that nourish your frequency, to set boundaries not from fear, but from self-respect. This is the point where the inner critic starts to fade. You stop measuring yourself by outdated standards. You realize you are not here to meet anyone else's timeline. You are here to evolve in alignment with your soul's rhythm. Dispenza emphasizes that self-love recalibrates the entire system. It restores harmony to the immune system, the endocrine system, the heart-brain connection. You literally become biologically coherent. When you live from self-love, your energy field becomes magnetic. You stop chasing. You attract. You stop proving. You embody. You stop surviving. You begin to thrive. This stage is deeply restorative. It's where the nervous system rebalances, the emotional body stabilizes, and the mind becomes clear. You no longer need external permission to feel worthy. You begin to experience peace, not as a fleeting state, but as your new default. In this stage, the old self no longer feels relevant. You've begun embodying a new identity, one rooted in wholeness. You don't need to become someone else. You remember who you've always been beneath the conditioning. Self-love isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming present with all that you are. And from that presence, life begins to reflect back a reality that matches your new frequency. The transformation deepens. Let's pause and integrate what's shifted across these 4 stages. A gratitude attunes your frequency to receivership. Forgiveness clears the emotional residue of the past. Compassion aligns you with unity consciousness. Self-love anchors your sovereignty and worth. These stages are not abstract. They are tangible energetic recalibrations. They alter your biochemistry. They reorganize your neural networks. They shift your entire vibrational signature. At this point in the journey, you are no longer the same person who began it. You don't just think differently. You feel different. You move differently. You perceive life through a different lens. Your body begins to heal not just physically but energetically. The weight of the past has lifted. Your emotional baseline has risen. You've entered a new timeline, not through luck, but through frequency alignment. And yet, the journey doesn't stop here. In fact, this is the space where the extraordinary begins. In the final stages of ascension, you'll enter the mystical realm, a space where you begin to merge with higher intelligence, where synchronicity becomes constant, where you tap into the infinite. You've cleared the debris. You've raised your frequency. You're ready for union. The next part will explore the final ascent, the last 4 stages that take you beyond the self, into the unified field, and ultimately into the embodiment of the divine. By this point, the self that began this transformation no longer exists in the same way. You've laid the groundwork, purified the emotional body, dissolved layers of the past, and realigned your internal compass toward elevated frequencies. But there's another threshold to cross, one that takes you from personal evolution to cosmic alignment. Stages 9 through 12 mark a profound shift. These aren't just refinements of earlier stages. They're initiations into a completely different level of reality. This is where the mystical becomes tangible, where your energy field not only stabilizes but expands beyond individual identity, where you no longer operate as a seeker, you become a transmitter. Each of these 4 stages is an initiation into greater responsibility, deeper wisdom, and absolute coherence with universal intelligence. These are the energies that lift you into transcendence, not by leaving the world behind, but by engaging with it from a higher octave of being. Stage 9, mindfulness. Here, awareness becomes a continuous presence, not as a practice done occasionally, but as a way of existing. Mindfulness is not about controlling thought. It's about watching thought from a state of presence so rooted, so stable, that mental noise can no longer pull you out of alignment. This is the birth of true observation, the capacity to witness without reacting, to respond without collapsing into old patterns. You've trained your brain to no longer be seduced by chaos. You've cultivated enough space between stimulus and response that you no longer mistake every emotion for truth. You become aware of what is arising, but you are no longer defined by it. You learn to see through the veils. In this state, time begins to shift. You are less pulled into the past or projected into the future. The present moment stretches open, revealing more space, more clarity, more intelligence than you ever thought possible. Your nervous system relaxes. Your brain waves slow down. You begin operating in a different bandwidth of reality. Dispenza teaches that mindfulness shifts brainwave states, from beta survival into alpha, theta, and even gamma. These altered states are where spontaneous healing occurs, where downloads of insight stream through, where communication with the field becomes effortless. You are no longer trying to manifest outcomes from mental repetition. You are syncing with a deeper rhythm, a rhythm that's already orchestrating the highest version of your life. This stage brings refinement. You notice subtle energy fluctuations. You sense misalignments before they manifest. You become less reactive to people and circumstances that once triggered you. Not because you suppress, but because you've outgrown the need for the story altogether. Mindfulness is the foundation of mastery. Without it, the rest becomes distorted. With it, you become a clear vessel, able to channel higher intelligence into thought, word, and action. Stage 10. Intuition. When the mind quiets, another voice becomes louder. Not the voice of logic, but the voice of knowing. This is the stage of intuition, not as guesswork, but as a direct line to higher intelligence. Intuition doesn't operate through the linear mind. It doesn't argue, analyze, or hesitate. It arises from stillness, often in the form of a sudden insight, a body sensation, or a flash of clarity. And in this stage, you learn to trust it not just occasionally, but as your primary compass. Dispenza emphasizes that the heart is the gateway to this intelligence. When heart and brain are in coherence, a new operating system is activated, one that is non-local, immediate, and precise. This isn't about predicting the future. It's about sensing alignment. You feel when something is true before it's confirmed. You know when a direction is off, even when it looks perfect on paper. You navigate through energy, not just logic. The more you honor intuition, the stronger it becomes. It begins to guide you to people, opportunities, and insights that you could never have found through planning alone. You move into synchronicity, where life no longer unfolds in straight lines but through quantum leaps. This is also the stage where the external world begins to reflect your internal alignment with startling accuracy. The right conversation appears. The perfect book lands in your hands. A delay reveals itself as divine timing. You are no longer orchestrating every detail. You are participating in a field that knows more than you. As intuition becomes your inner authority, fear diminishes. Doubt fades. You stop outsourcing your decisions. You recognize that the same intelligence that animates stars and galaxies also flows through you, and it knows exactly where to go next. Stage 11, Connection. Now we move into the mystical. Connection is not a concept. It is the lived experience of unity with all things. In this stage, the sense of separation begins to dissolve. You no longer feel like a fragment trying to survive in a disconnected world. You begin to perceive yourself as a wave within the ocean, distinct yet never separate. This stage is marked by moments of awe, not because something dramatic happens, but because you feel the presence of something vaster flowing through your everyday life. A walk in nature becomes a communion. A deep breath becomes a sacred act. Silence becomes filled with intelligence. You're no longer just interacting with the world, you're in dialogue with it. You sense patterns and symbols. You feel guided. You trust the unfolding. Even discomfort no longer triggers collapse. You recognize it as part of a greater intelligence moving through you. This connection doesn't diminish individuality. It refines it. You don't lose your sense of self. You transcend the limitations of ego identity. You become aware of the field, the quantum space that links all consciousness. And you begin to experience yourself as part of that field. Dispenza's research shows that in these states, individuals can generate heart and brain coherence so strong that it influences the electromagnetic field of the room. Others feel it. The energy is palpable. Healing can occur simply by presence. You begin to notice your impact, not in terms of control but as influence. Your very state of being changes environments. People feel better around you not because of what you say, but because of what you radiate. This is true connection, not driven by need, but by resonance. Stage 12, Mastery. The final stage is not an end, it's an integration. Mastery is not about perfection. It is about coherence. It's the moment when your inner world is no longer dictated by the outer. When you live from elevated emotion, not occasionally, but consistently. When you move through life with presence, clarity, and compassion. Not as performance, but as natural expression. In this stage, your personality aligns with your soul's frequency. You no longer act out old stories. You no longer sabotage expansion. You don't just talk about trust, you live it. You don't just try to manifest. You become the embodiment of the frequency you desire to experience. Mastery is not about escaping the human experience. It's about inhabiting it fully, with grace, awareness, and power. Challenges may still arise, but they don't derail you. You see them as invitations, lessons, refinements. Dispenza teaches that in this state, the brain and heart are in continuous harmony. The body becomes an instrument of higher intelligence. Synchronicities increase. Healing accelerates. Manifestation becomes instantaneous, not because you're trying harder, but because you're in resonance with the field. You no longer search for answers. You become the answer. Mastery is the return to original self, not the self created by programming, trauma, or survival, but the luminous self that always existed beneath the noise. It's the full embodiment of the soul in form. And once this stage is integrated, a new cycle begins, not from lack, but from overflowing presence. You become a guide, a frequency holder, a stabilizing force in a chaotic world, not by preaching, but by being. You are no longer the student of change. You are the embodiment of it, the path ahead. The final 4 stages, mindfulness, intuition, connection, and mastery, form a sacred completion. They do not mark the end of growth. They mark the beginning of conscious creation, sourced from alignment rather than effort. You've cultivated awareness. You've purified emotional distortion. You've opened your heart. You've aligned with a greater intelligence. You've stepped beyond survival and into coherence. And now you live as a luminous presence, an example of what is possible when consciousness is remembered, honored, and embodied. The path ahead is not linear. You may revisit stages. You may find yourself oscillating between frequencies. But the difference now is you know how to return to center. You've built the inner infrastructure to stay aligned regardless of circumstance. This is ascension not as escape but as embodiment. A life where your thoughts create your reality. A life where your energy precedes your action. A life where you don't react, you create. A life where you are no longer the echo of your past. You are the signal of your future. And it begins now. You now stand equipped with the full map of the 12 stages of ascension. But awareness alone does not ignite transformation. To truly live these stages, to stabilize in higher frequencies, to shift from reactive survival into conscious creation, you need practices that do more than inspire. You need tools that activate. Joe Dispenza's entire framework is rooted in one foundational truth. Your energy creates your reality. Thought is electric. Emotion is magnetic. When both align with intention, you don't just hope for change, you become it. This next phase is about integrating that truth through consistent application. Techniques that entrain your nervous system, recondition your subconscious, and open the gateway between the known and the unknown. They're not rituals for the sake of routine. They are precise, energetic tools designed to collapse the illusion of limitation and amplify the signal of your desired future. Let's break them down into 3 high-impact categories: meditation, affirmations, and visualization. Each one rewires your consciousness in its own way. Each one builds the momentum of ascension. And when practiced together, they don't just accelerate your growth, they magnetize your entire field. Meditation is not about silencing the mind. It's about changing your brainwave patterns to match the frequency of the future you want to live. Dispenza has shown through extensive neuroimaging studies that meditation allows the brain to move out of high beta, the survival mode where thoughts race and cortisol floods the system, and into alpha, theta, and gamma states. These are the frequencies where healing happens, where intuition opens, where the quantum field responds. Meditation is the doorway to the subconscious. It's how you override conditioned programs and plant new possibilities into the soil of the mind. But the key lies in how you meditate. You're not simply seeking stillness. You're training yourself to become no one, no thing, nowhere, in no time. This dissolves the identity that's bound to the past and opens the door to pure potential. Here's a condensed structure of a Dispenza-style meditation you can apply. 1. Induction phase. Begin by focusing on the space around your body. Tune into the quantum field, becoming aware of infinite space. Above you, around you, within you. This shifts awareness from matter to energy. 2. Heart-brain coherence. Slow your breath. Focus on the heart center. Generate elevated emotions like gratitude or love. This synchronizes the autonomic nervous system and creates coherence between the heart and brain. 3. Open focus instead of narrow thinking, expand your awareness. Tune into the space beyond the body. Disperse attention equally in all directions. This takes you out of the analytical mind and into unified consciousness. 4. Mental rehearsal. Now bring in a vision of your future self. See it, feel it, engage with it, but not as a distant wish. Experience it as if it's already real. Fire and wire new neural networks. Condition the body to the emotion of your desired future. 5. Surrender, let go. Sit in the unknown. Allow the field to organize the how. Stay in gratitude as if your intention has already manifested. Practice this daily, not as a discipline but as devotion. You're not doing it to escape reality. You're doing it to reshape it. Affirmations. Reprogramming the subconscious. Words are not neutral. They carry charge. When repeated with intention and emotional alignment, affirmations become tools of reconditioning, pulling your subconscious out of old identity loops and into resonance with a new frequency. The subconscious doesn't respond to logic. It responds to repetition, emotion, and imagery. That's why passive affirmations, spoken without feeling, fail to land. The words must be felt. They must match the internal vibration of the reality you seek to inhabit. In Dispenza's work, affirmations aren't wishful thinking. They're a way of installing a new identity, one that matches the future you're choosing. Effective affirmations are structured not around what you want to have, but who you are being. Examples: I am the embodiment of abundance. I live in harmony with the intelligence of the universe. I trust the unknown to deliver what's aligned. I radiate elevated energy that transforms every environment I enter. I am already connected to everything I desire. Notice the absence of future tense. You're not waiting. You're affirming the state as if it's now. Because energetically it already exists. You're aligning yourself with it, and through sustained alignment, reality must respond. Here's how to maximize the power of affirmations. Repeat them in altered states. Right after waking or during meditation, the brain is most suggestible. That's when the subconscious is receptive. Pair them with elevated emotion. Saying "I am free" while feeling trapped won't shift energy. But saying it while evoking the sensation of freedom programs your body as if the shift already occurred. Write them, speak them, record them. Use every sensory channel. The more input the subconscious receives, the faster it rewires. Don't overload. Focus on 3 to 5 core affirmations that reflect your current stage of evolution. Let them sink in before layering new ones. When affirmations become a felt experience rather than mechanical words, they activate neural pathways. They recondition identity. And most importantly, they change your energetic signature. That's the real goal, not to convince yourself, but to shift your frequency. Because the field responds not to what you say, but to what you radiate. Visualization. Programming the quantum field. Visualization is more than mental imagery. It's the language the quantum field responds to. When combined with emotion and intention, it becomes a tool of creation. Not through force, but through alignment. Dispenza describes visualization as the act of mentally rehearsing your desired future until it becomes more familiar than the past. The brain doesn't distinguish between real and imagined. When you vividly see and feel a scenario, your body believes it's already happening. You're not visualizing to escape reality. You're training your body to become emotionally familiar with your chosen timeline, so that when it arrives, it's not a shock. It's a match. The steps are deceptively simple. 1. Choose a specific outcome or state of being. This could be inner peace, creative success, vibrant health, or intuitive guidance. 2. Create a sensory-rich mental image. Engage all 5 senses. What do you see, hear, touch, smell, taste? Make it vivid. 3. Layer in emotion. Feel the gratitude, the excitement, the calm, whatever emotion reflects that reality. Emotion is the magnet. It's what draws the future toward you. 4. Repeat consistently. The more you rehearse, the stronger the neural networks become. The stronger the emotion, the more the body aligns with the outcome. 5. Let go of how. Your job is alignment. The field handles the logistics. To make visualization even more potent, combine it with meditation. When you enter theta brainwave states, visualization sinks deeper into the subconscious and amplifies the signal you're broadcasting into the field. You don't have to visualize for hours. A few minutes of intensely focused, emotionally charged visualization often outperforms hours of scattered thought. It's the coherence that counts. When practiced consistently, visualization leads to actual biological shifts. Neural circuits change. Hormonal patterns shift. Behavior adjusts. Life begins to match the image you've internalized. The synergy of the three, meditation, affirmations, and visualization, are not separate practices. They are frequency stabilizers. Each one addresses a different layer of consciousness. A meditation calms and reprograms the analytical mind. Affirmations recondition the subconscious with new beliefs. A visualization programs the field with a coherent signal of what you desire. Together, they form a trifecta that reshapes thought, emotion, and energy. They collapse the latency between desire and manifestation. They allow the higher stages of ascension, like intuition, connection, and mastery, to become lived experiences, not just ideals. But here's the real key: consistency. Transformation doesn't come from doing it once or even sporadically. It's the daily entrainment of your energy system to your desired reality that creates sustainable change. You are not practicing to become spiritual. You are practicing to become coherent. To think greater than your environment, to feel greater than your past, to act in alignment with your future. The tools don't just accelerate ascension, they anchor it. 12 stages, each one more than a concept, each a frequency, a shift, a reorientation of your entire being. From the first spark of awareness to the mastery of universal intelligence, this is not just a model of transformation. It's a living process. You've now been exposed to Joe Dispenza's map of ascension, not as something philosophical, but as a practical architecture for spiritual evolution. And while it's been broken into 12 distinct phases, the truth is, they are all interconnected. They spiral, they repeat, they expand. They mirror your own evolution at every level of consciousness. The purpose of this video wasn't just to explain the 12 stages. It was to activate something dormant inside you, to pull you out of the memorized patterns of survival and invite you to recognize the extraordinary truth. You are not limited by your past, your genetics, your environment, or your beliefs. You are a quantum being, encoded with infinite intelligence, wired to evolve, and designed to create. But like all powerful technology, it only works when you engage it. Ascension isn't about floating away from the world. It's about becoming fully conscious in it. It's about waking up from the illusion that your power lies outside of you, in your bank account, in your history, in your circumstances, and realizing that everything you need is already within your field. Waiting for alignment, waiting for you to choose coherence. The 12 stages are not steps to follow passively. They're not achievements to be ticked off a list. They are thresholds, each one a deeper invitation into your true nature. Let's briefly ground everything by returning to the essence of each stage. Awareness shattered the illusion of unconscious living. Acceptance released resistance to what is. Surrender dissolved the ego's illusion of control. Intention gave your energy direction and clarity. A gratitude amplified the frequency of fulfillment. Forgiveness broke the chains of the past. Compassion expanded your identity beyond the personal self. Self-love reestablished your worth as inherent and eternal. A mindfulness anchored you in presence. Intuition unlocked the language of higher guidance. Connection blurred the boundary between self and source. A mastery embodied the state of conscious creation. None of these stages are out of reach. You don't need to be special. You don't need external validation. You don't need permission. You just need one thing: commitment to the process. Because transformation isn't always glamorous. It's not always filled with signs and synchronicities. Sometimes it's quiet, subtle. Sometimes you'll feel like nothing is happening. That's the moment you must keep going. That's the moment the old self is dissolving and the new one hasn't fully anchored yet. Most people turn back here. They mistake discomfort for failure. But if you stay the course, if you trust the intelligence that designed this path, you will pass through the void and into a life that reflects who you really are. And no one else can walk this path for you. Yes, Joe Dispenza has laid out the map. Yes, you've now received the coordinates. But maps mean nothing unless you move. The only thing separating you from the version of yourself living in coherence, freedom, and mastery is the choice to begin. Not just once, but every day. Choose to sit in meditation even when your thoughts resist. Choose to speak affirmations even when you don't feel them yet. Choose to visualize your future even when the present contradicts it. Choose to forgive even when the story feels justified. Choose to love yourself even when you don't recognize who you're becoming. Because ascension is not a destination. It's a lifestyle. It's a moment-to-moment recalibration into higher alignment. You're not trying to become enlightened. You're learning how to stop being unconscious. You're learning to feel again, to think in new ways, to vibrate at new levels. And eventually, the practice is no longer something you do, it's who you are. That's mastery. But don't confuse mastery with perfection. You'll still have human moments. You'll still experience contrast. But you'll move through it with awareness. You'll catch old programs before they anchor. You'll rise faster. You'll recalibrate smoother. And most importantly, you'll no longer need outer circumstances to feel inner peace. That's the freedom you're really after. Not the perfect life. Not the constant high. But the stability of inner alignment regardless of what's happening out there. And from that stability, everything else flows. Health improves. Relationships transform. Purpose clarifies. Synchronicities increase. Life stops being something you react to and starts becoming something you co-create. But none of it happens without practice. Daily, consistent, sacred practice. You've seen what's possible. You've been given the framework. Now it's your responsibility to move forward with devotion, not desperation. You don't need more knowledge. You need more coherence. And coherence is cultivated in silence, in stillness, in repetition, and in trust. So here's the invitation. Begin now, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Begin now. Choose one practice and go deep. Let the energy compound. Let your inner world become more real than the outer one. Let your frequency lead the way. The truth is, no one becomes awakened by accident. It's a conscious act of rebellion against limitation. It's a daily choice to remember who you are beyond form. You are not the body. You are not the thoughts. You are not the identity you inherited. You are awareness. You are energy. You are creation itself. And now you're equipped to live from that place, not someday, not in the next life, but now. So let this be your threshold. Step through it with presence, with intention, with courage. Because once you cross it, everything changes, not instantly, but inevitably. The field is waiting. Your future self is waiting. The journey doesn't begin when life gets easier. It begins when you decide that your evolution matters more than your excuses. This is the path of the ascended. It doesn't belong to mystics or masters. It belongs to those who are ready to remember. You're not just watching this video. You're standing at the edge of your own initiation. So breathe in, get still, and begin.